Welcome back to my channel. The bombshell that's about to rock the Sister Wives universe isn't something you'll ever see on TLC. This is the story the network, the Browns, and their army of attorneys have fought to bury. But it's out now and it's explosive. We're talking about a scandal so deliberate, so orchestrated, it rewrites everything we thought we knew about Kody and Robyn Brown. Today, we expose the secret recordings, the tapes that allegedly buried them in a court of law, and the shocking $6 million cover-up a judge has now labeled as fraud. This isn't about heartbreak or spiritual divorce anymore. This is about money, power, and betrayal. Before we dive into the leaked transcripts and the financial evidence that ripped open the facade of the Brown Empire, do me one huge favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on all notifications. Because what's coming next will change everything you thought you knew about the Sister Wives. For years, the Browns sold the world one central idea: one family, one pot. A communal fund, a sacred financial bond. Every dollar from Christine's online business, Janelle's real estate commissions, Mary's Inn, and the massive TLC contract flowed into this family pot. From that pot, mortgages were paid. Kids were raised. Futures were promised. It was supposed to symbolize equality, the spiritual union of 5 adults and nearly 20 children. But according to sealed court records and insider testimony, that family pot was nothing more than a beautifully packaged illusion. And the moment Christine walked out, the illusion began to collapse. Our sources, people close to the legal proceedings, claim Kody panicked. Not just emotionally, but financially. He and his favored wife, Robyn, allegedly saw what was coming: the wives gaining independence, the power slipping away, and the family pot suddenly up for grabs. What came next, according to evidence now presented before a judge, was a calculated plan, a $6 million scheme hidden under the guise of asset protection. And the lawsuit? It wasn't a divorce case. You can't divorce wives you were never legally married to. Instead, Janelle and Mary, with quiet support from Christine, filed a civil fraud suit against Kody and Robyn Brown. The charges: breach of fiduciary duty, unjust enrichment, and civil fraud. They claimed that as the self-declared CEO of their family partnership, Kody was responsible for managing the pot for everyone's benefit. Instead, he allegedly siphoned money for himself and Robyn, secretly and systematically. And the proof? A series of tapes, real damning recordings. The first tape, allegedly recorded in late 2020, captures a chilling late-night conversation between Kody and Robyn in their Flagstaff mansion. The tone? Low, whispered, conspiratorial. Kody: "They just don't get it, Robyn. The family's contracting. It's becoming what it was always meant to be. The loyal ones, the ones who respect the patriarchy, that's the real family now. Robyn: I just worry, Kody, about the others. About what happens when they all leave. Won't they want their share? Kody: What share? The pie is the family's, and we are the heart of that family. Janelle, Christine, Mary, they're becoming independent contractors. The show is about us now. You, me, and our kids." He then lays out his plan. We need to restructure. Not hide money, protect it. Move the liquid assets from the family account into something more secure. Something under a corporate veil. In your name, in mine. For our children's legacy. We can't let bitterness jeopardize their future. Robyn hesitates. Is that even legal, Kody? Won't they notice? Kody: It's a transfer. A business expense. They've been checked out for years. By the time they figure it out, it'll be done. And then comes the phrase that would become infamous in court: Dabzark. A few weeks later, state filings confirm the creation of Dabzark Entertainment LLC, registered under Kody and Robyn Brown, a new family business. But in reality, prosecutors argued it was a vault, a corporate shell to move the money. The courtroom, according to insiders, fell silent as that transcript was read aloud. Janelle and Mary didn't flinch. They just stared ahead, faces cold, eyes wet. Then came the financial evidence, the real hammer blow. Forensic accountants synchronized bank statements with the recorded tapes. The jury watched as a withdrawal of $400,000 from the Brown family trust appeared on screen, dated just 2 weeks after Kody's conversation. Then, a deposit of the exact same amount into Dabzark Entertainment LLC. The memo line? Family restructuring loan. One by one, the pieces fell into place. The sale of the Las Vegas homes. The Coyote Pass funds. The unexplained transfers. Money meant for the entire family, quietly redirected. And then another tape. Kody, speaking to a financial advisor. Advisor. So, to be clear, you want to liquidate these accounts and move the funds into the new LLC? Typically, we'd create separate trusts for each partner. Kody, this isn't a dissolution, it's a consolidation. The family isn't dissolving, it's purifying. Those words echoed through the courtroom. Purifying. A word meant to justify betrayal. And that, my friends, is where the case against Kody and Robyn Brown truly began to unravel. Because if the tapes are real, and if the transfers hold up under scrutiny, this isn't just family drama anymore. It's potential financial crime. And trust me, this story is far from over. More leaks are surfacing every day. So stay tuned, because the next part of this investigation will expose just how deep this financial web goes, and how Kody and Robyn allegedly tried to cover their tracks even after the lawsuit hit. This is Sister Wives Crew, and you won't find this level of truth anywhere else. Welcome back to my channel. If you thought the tapes were shocking, wait until you hear what happened next inside that Arizona courtroom. What unfolded wasn't just a legal showdown. It was the public unmasking of a man who called himself the patriarch, but who allegedly treated his family like an empire to exploit. The court resumed after a short recess, and that's when the prosecution dropped the next bombshell, a verbatim excerpt from another recording. Kody's voice, calm but commanding. I am the president of the family corporation. I'm making an executive decision to reinvest our capital into the most stable and loyal part of the portfolio. It's a business decision. The other partners, Janelle and Mary, they've signed off. Their signature is implied by their continued participation in the family structure. They trust my leadership. It's all above board. Just process the transfer. That single line, their signature is implied, made the entire courtroom gasp. In that moment, the prosecution argued Kody had effectively admitted to authorizing massive financial transfers without consent, hiding behind his own self-appointed authority. Then came the paper trail. Documents showing $350,000 moved from liquidated stocks and bonds. Another $150,000 withdrawn from an account labeled show bonus royalties. And over the next 18 months, the total grew. A staggering $1.6 million quietly funneled from joint family accounts into the Dabsark LLC controlled solely by Kody and Robyn Brown. Where did that money go? Lavish vacations for Kody and Robyn, designer clothes, a brand new luxury SUV, and perhaps most controversially, a major investment into my sister wife's closet, Robyn's online jewelry business that had already divided the family years earlier. But the most damning piece of evidence wasn't the vacations or the spending. It was Coyote Pass, the land that was supposed to symbolize their shared dream of building a forever home, purchased by the family as a whole. And yet, according to the prosecution, Dabsark Entertainment had quietly placed a lien on Janelle and Mary's parcels, charging them management fees for property that had been bought with their own money. Even the judge, Annabelle Peterson, had to pause proceedings to clarify what she'd just heard. She turned to Kody's attorney and asked, "Are you seriously suggesting that your client used communal funds to create a company and then billed his partners for managing assets those same funds purchased?" The defense attorney stammered. The room was dead silent. Kody's entire legal defense rested on one argument, that he was never bound by any formal partnership. That as the patriarch, the only legally recognized husband, he held ultimate authority. That the family pot was a spiritual understanding, not a binding contract. But the more he spoke, the worse it got. When Kody took the stand, our sources say he came off arrogant, dismissive, and evasive. He didn't deny the tapes. Instead, he called them contextually misunderstood. He said the money was reinvested to protect the true believers, the ones who hadn't abandoned the covenant. He called Dabsark a lifeboat. But to everyone else in that courtroom, it looked like a luxury yacht built from the sinking family ship. The prosecution's cross-examination was devastating. They played a TLC clip where Kody tearfully said he'd do anything for his wives, then immediately followed it with the audio where he called them independent contractors who didn't deserve a golden parachute. When asked to reconcile the two, Kody dodged, rambled, and blamed. He accused Janelle of being financially reckless for buying an RV. He said Mary abandoned the family for her business in Utah. He painted himself as the victim, a patriarch, forced to protect his real family, Robyn and her kids. But Judge Peterson wasn't buying it. Our insider described her as calm, sharp, and growing visibly irritated with every minute of Kody's self-pitying monologues. She demanded clarity, not sermons. The prosecution's evidence, bank records, corporate filings, property deeds, spoke louder than Kody's justifications. It became a battle between documents and delusion. And the documents were winning. Then came the emotional turning point. Janelle Brown took the stand. Her presence changed the entire energy of the courtroom. She wasn't angry. She wasn't dramatic. She was precise, controlled. She spoke about working full-time while raising 6 children, pooling her income into the family pot, and trusting Kody to manage it responsibly. She said this wasn't about faith. It was about fairness. Then came the moment that silenced the room. Her lawyer asked, "Mrs. Brown, when you heard the recording of Mr. Brown saying you were an independent contractor who didn't deserve a golden parachute, how did that make you feel?" Janelle paused, steady but emotional. "It felt like a gut punch," she said. "It wasn't about a parachute. It was about 30 years of my life. The work, the sacrifices, the security for my children. I didn't ask for more than what I earned. But to hear him dismiss it like that, it confirmed that the man I trusted saw me not as a partner, but as a disposable asset." The courtroom was silent. Even the judge lowered her gaze. Janelle's testimony cut deeper than any legal argument. She reframed the case completely. It wasn't about polygamy or loyalty anymore. It was about business. It was about theft. Then Mary took the stand. Her testimony was shorter, but haunting. She spoke of the early dream, the one family Kody had promised them all, and how that dream eroded piece by piece until all that was left was a bank account with her name missing from it. She produced receipts, emails, and records proving how she'd paid back loans into the family pot, loans that had allegedly been siphoned out behind her back. And finally, Robyn, she wept. She shook. She claimed ignorance. "I didn't know," she said over and over. "I trusted Kody. I thought it was for the family." But the paper trail didn't lie. And by the time her testimony ended, even her tears couldn't wash away what the evidence revealed. This was no longer a story of wives and husbands. It was a story of partners and betrayal. And for the first time, it was Kody, not the women, standing in judgment. But this trial isn't over yet. Because next time, we'll reveal the verdict, the aftermath, and the secret settlement that could finally shatter the Brown family's empire for good. Stay tuned, because what happens next will change the sister wives' legacy forever. Will change the sister wives' legacy forever. The courtroom was silent, the kind of silence that feels heavy. Like the air itself was waiting for the truth to finally come out. Robyn sat on the witness stand, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the microphone. Her voice was soft, almost rehearsed, as she said she signed the LLC documents because Kody told her it was to protect the children. It sounded noble. It sounded maternal. But when the cross-examination began, that story started to crumble piece by piece. The prosecution walked up slowly, calm but lethal, holding a stack of color-coded documents. They weren't here for stories. They were here for facts. "Mrs. Brown," the prosecutor began, "can you explain this $15,000 charge made through Dabsark Entertainment LLC? A luxury brand purchase, handbags, jewelry, designer shoes. Business expenses?" Robyn blinked fast, nodding nervously. "Yes, it was a business purchase. We film content. Appearances. It was part of the show image." The prosecutor didn't argue. He simply advanced to the next slide. "Then what about the down payment on this luxury SUV?" Robyn shifted uncomfortably. "That was a company car," she said, voice trembling. But then came the sound that changed the entire mood in the courtroom, an audio clip. Robyn's voice crystal clear. "Kody, is that even legal? Moving it all like that?" Her tone on the tape was nervous, aware, and afraid. The prosecutor turned back to the jury. She wasn't confused. She wasn't manipulated. She knew. The defense objected, but the damage was already done. Robyn tried to play the role of a loyal, uninformed wife, claiming she didn't understand complex business things. But the prosecution painted a very different picture, not of a victim, but of a co-conspirator. They produced email after email, threads between Robyn and Kody, discussing which assets to protect first. They showed text messages in which Robyn identified accounts that Janelle and Mary had recently contributed to, accounts she referred to as prime for restructuring. It was devastating. The image of the tearful, innocent wife began to collapse before everyone's eyes. What emerged instead was an image of calculation, of control, of complicity. The prosecutor's closing line hit like a thunderclap. Her tears are not for her family. They are for the fear of being caught. The first phase of the proceedings ended in stunned silence. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Even the cameramen in the back seemed hesitant to move. Every piece of evidence told the same story. The tapes, the emails, the bank records. A story of betrayal. A man and his favored wife, facing the collapse of their plural empire, deciding to take the money and run, hiding it behind a corporate wall built with their children's names. It was no longer just emotional betrayal. It was criminal. The judge had watched every moment in silence. Her expression never changed, but her eyes said everything. She had seen enough. And as that day closed, one thing was certain. The verdict would not just destroy a family. It would define them forever. Part 2, the final day. Morning broke cold over the Coconino County Courthouse. Reporters crowded outside like vultures waiting for the final piece of meat. Inside, the tension was unbearable. Kody and Robyn entered hand in hand, not as a loving couple, but as soldiers walking toward judgment. Their eyes were hollow, their steps synchronized. It was no longer about saving the families, it was about survival. Janelle and Mary came separately, calm but resolute. They sat in quiet solidarity, and behind them, Kody Brown. She wasn't a plaintiff. She didn't have to be there, but her presence spoke louder than any testimony. She came to witness the end of the lie she had once lived inside. The courtroom was called to order. Judge Annabelle Peterson entered, her face the definition of composure. She adjusted her glasses, looked out at the defendants, and the entire room fell into a breathless stillness. She didn't rush. She didn't blink. She just looked at Kody Brown for a long, unbroken moment, the kind of look that seems to peel away every mask, every excuse, until there's nothing left but the truth. Then she began. This court has heard extensive testimony and reviewed a mountain of evidence in the matter of Brown and Brown versus Brown. Her tone was razor-sharp, judicial, but personal. What has been presented here is not a misunderstanding. It is not a financial disagreement between partners. It is a deliberate and methodical narrative of deception, a profound breach of trust, and what this court can only define as a calculated, egregious act of fraud. A collective gasp rippled through the room. The word fraud hung in the air like a final blow. It was no longer an accusation. It was now a legal reality. The judge continued, unwavering. The defense has argued that Mr. Brown, as patriarch, held authority over all family finances, that his role entitled him to make executive decisions over the family's collective assets. This argument is not only legally flawed, it is morally bankrupt. She turned to Kody, eyes narrowing. For decades, Ms. Janelle Brown, Ms. Mary Brown, and Ms. Kody Brown contributed their labor, their income, and their trust to what was presented as a shared partnership. They built this empire together. To suggest they are owed nothing more than the patriarchal benevolence of Mr. Brown is an insult to the very idea of family. Kody shifted, face tightening, but the judge wasn't done. She lifted the Dabsark Entertainment documents. This, she said, is not business. This is theft wrapped in paperwork. The courtroom went still again. The Dabsark LLC was the primary instrument of deception. Audio evidence confirms Mr. Brown's intention to restructure assets, not to protect his family, but to shield them from his family. He referred to his wives, partners of 30 years, as independent contractors. That is not partnership. That is betrayal. Her attention turned sharply to Robyn, whose tears had returned in full force. Ms. Brown has attempted to portray herself as a passive participant. But the evidence demonstrates otherwise. She was not confused, she was complicit. We have her emails. We have her recorded doubts about the legality of their transfers. This court finds her testimony to be utterly incredible. Robyn sobbed quietly, clutching a tissue, but the judge didn't waver. This was not about protecting children. It was about protecting themselves. Then she set down her papers, folded her hands, and delivered the words that would echo through reality television history. The court finds the defendants, Kody and Robyn Brown, guilty of fraudulent misappropriation of shared marital assets. The sound of the gavel fell like a thunderclap. It was over. The Brown family legacy, once built on faith, unity, and love, now stood shattered in a courtroom of cold, hard truth. And as Kody turned to look at Robyn, tears streaming down his face, there was no more denial left. The family pot was empty. The empire was gone. And the world finally saw who had drained it. She was a signator on the corporate documents. She was a beneficiary of the diverted funds using the Dabsark credit card for extensive personal expenditures. The tears of a distressed wife do not wash away the ink of a co-conspirator's signature. The judge paused, letting the weight of her words settle. Kody's face was turning a deep shade of crimson. Robyn was now openly sobbing. Janelle and Mary remained perfectly still, their eyes fixed on the judge. "Let's be clear about what these funds were," the judge stated, her voice rising with indignation. "This was not surplus income. This was the life savings of 4 women. It was the equity from the Las Vegas homes. It was television revenue earned by the entire family. It was the seed money for businesses. It was the future security for 13 of the Brown children. The defendants took that money, the product of decades of collective work, and treated it as their personal piggy bank. They used it to fund a lifestyle for themselves and their children, while their former partners, who had contributed the lion's share of those funds for years, were left with uncertain futures and liens placed on land they had already paid for." She picked up a sheath of papers. "The court has reviewed the forensic accounting reports in detail. The pattern is undeniable. A total of 1,624,510.38 was systematically and improperly transferred from joint family accounts into accounts solely controlled by Kody and Robyn Brown through their shell corporation. This constitutes a clear and undeniable breach of fiduciary duty. It constitutes unjust enrichment, and given the evidence of intent provided by the defendant's own recorded words, it constitutes civil fraud of the highest order." The verdict was in, but the judge was far from finished. What came next was the punishment, and it was designed not just to repay, but to dismantle the entire corrupt structure Kody and Robyn had built. "Therefore, this court orders the following," she declared, her voice now like steel. "First, the defendants Kody Brown and Robyn Brown are ordered to repay the full amount of $1,024, then $500 or $38 to the plaintiffs. This is not a suggestion. It is a judgment. Second, due to the malicious and fraudulent nature of the defendants' actions, this court is awarding punitive damages in the amount of $500,000. This is to send a clear message that such deceptive financial conduct will not be tolerated in this state. The purpose of this penalty is to punish and to deter. Third, the defendants are ordered to pay all of the plaintiff's legal fees and court costs, which have been submitted and verified at a total of $285,000. This brings the total judgment against Kody and Robyn Brown to $249,38. A wave of shock rippled through the courtroom. Over $4 million? It was a financially devastating sum. Kody looked as though he'd been physically struck. Robyn's sobbing became a choked gasp, but the judge wasn't done. Furthermore, the court orders the immediate and complete dissolution of the entity known as Dabsark Entertainment LLC, all remaining assets within that LLC are to be seized and liquidated by a court-appointed receiver with the proceeds applied directly to this judgment. The liens placed by Dabsark Entertainment LLC on the Coyote Pass properties owned by Miss Janelle Brown and Miss Mary Brown are hereby declared null and void. They were fraudulent from their inception. The court orders the Coconino County Clerk to immediately expunge them from the record and to issue clear and unencumbered title deeds to Miss Janelle Brown and Miss Mary Brown for their respective parcels. This was a huge victory. The land they had fought for, dreamed of building on, was finally truly theirs, free from Kody's manipulative control. Additionally, the judge continued, "This court is placing a lien on the property located at 9620 W. Gabby Road in Flagstaff, Arizona, owned by the defendants. That property may not be sold or refinanced until this judgment is satisfied in full." The court also orders a garnishment of wages for both Kody Brown and Robyn Brown. 25% of all their future earnings, including any and all income derived from their participation in the television program, Sister Wives, or any related media, will be paid directly to the plaintiffs until the judgment is settled. This was the final crushing blow. Their income from the show, their only significant source of revenue, was now legally attached. Their $1-million home was now an anchor, not an asset. The financial fortress they had tried to build for themselves had just become their prison. The judge laid down her papers and delivered her final remarks directly to Kody. "Mr. Brown, you spoke in your testimony of your sacred duty to protect your family. A man's duty is to all his children, not just the ones living under his favorite roof. A partner's duty is one of honesty and transparency, not secrecy and theft. You have failed spectacularly in these duties. You have confused patriarchy with tyranny and leadership with larceny. You did not protect your family. You plundered it. This judgment is not merely a financial reckoning. It is a moral one." Case closed. With a final rap of her gavel, it was over. Judge Peterson stood and swept out of the courtroom, leaving a scene of stunned silence and emotional carnage in her wake. For a long moment, nobody moved. Kody Brown sat frozen, his face a mask of disbelief and rage. Robyn was hunched over, her body shaking with sobs. Then slowly, Janelle and Mary turned to each other. Tears of relief of 30 years of frustration and pain finally being released streamed down their faces. They embraced their lawyers, then each other in a long, silent hug of shared victory and profound sorrow. Across the aisle, Christine Brown simply stood up. She looked over at Kody, not with malice or triumph, but with a look of distant pity. Then a slow, genuine smile spread across her face. It was the smile of a woman who had seen the truth she had long known finally validated in a court of law. It was the smile of someone who had escaped the sinking ship just in time and was now watching it slip beneath the waves from the safety of the shore. Without a word, she turned and walked out of the courtroom, her head held high. A free woman in every sense of the word. The chaos erupted outside the courthouse doors. A small scrum of local reporters alerted to the high-profile civil case had gathered. Kody and Robyn, flanked by their defeated-looking lawyer, stormed past them. "Mr. Brown, any comment on the fraud ruling?" A reporter shouted. Kody glared, his eyes burning with fury, but said nothing. He shoved his way through the cameras, practically dragging a weeping Robyn behind him, and bundled her into a waiting car before speeding away. His silence was more damning than any statement could have been. In contrast, Janelle and Mary, though emotional, faced the cameras with dignity. Janelle spoke briefly. "Today was not about revenge," she said, her voice steady despite the tears. "It was about truth. It was about accountability. For years, we operated as a family and a partnership. That partnership was broken. The court has affirmed our position, and for that, we are grateful. Now we can finally move on and build our own futures, secure in what is rightfully ours. The fallout from this verdict, our sources say, will be catastrophic for Kody and Robyn. The $4 million judgment is an impossible sum for them to pay outright. The wage garnishment means their television income will be slashed, forcing a drastic and immediate lifestyle change. The mansion with its massive mortgage now becomes an albatross around their necks. They are for all intents and purposes financially ruined. Their reputation already tarnished in the court of public opinion is now legally defined by a fraud conviction. So what happens now? Our inside sources are buzzing with exclusive theories about the future. First, the show. How can Sister Wives possibly continue? The network is in a nightmare position. They have a show whose two main remaining stars have been legally branded as fraudsters who stole from their former co-stars. Some insiders speculate the network will have to cancel the show to avoid the reputational damage. But a more compelling theory is that they will do the opposite. They will lean into the disaster. Kody and Robyn are likely under an ironclad contract that forces them to film. Imagine the next season. Cameras rolling as court-appointed receivers tag assets in their home. Filming their reaction as 25% of their paycheck disappears, capturing the raw, unfiltered drama of a couple forced to sell off their luxury possessions to pay back the women they betrayed. It would be the ultimate reality TV train wreck and potentially the highest-rated season in the show's history. Second, what about Robyn? For years, viewers have questioned her motives. Was she truly in love with Kody and the principle of polygamy? Or was she in love with the financial security and queen wife status that Kody provided? That question is about to be answered. She didn't sign up to be married to a man in financial ruin, publicly disgraced, and legally obligated to support his ex-wives. The ultimate test of her loyalty will be whether she sticks by Kody as they navigate bankruptcy and public humiliation. Some insiders are already whispering that this judgment will be the beginning of the end for them. That Robyn will not be willing to live a life of financial struggle, and that Kody, having lost everything else, may soon lose her too. And finally, we must return to the mystery of the tapes. The evidence that brought everything crashing down. Who recorded Kody? Who leaked the evidence? The official story will likely never be told. But the most persistent theory, the one whispered in the circles closest to the family, is the most heartbreaking and powerful of all. The theory is that it was one of Kody's The theory is that it was one of Kody's